Hello friends, welcome back to another episode of r/ProRevenge, where you'll get your daily dose of satisfaction by listening to others suffer, because we're all messed up people. In this episode, you'll hear why you should never mess with a rancher, a living situation turning horrible, and we'll finish up with a fun story about having to jackhammer concrete. I hope you stay for all the stories today, and subscribe for future videos. This one's titled, Never Mess with a Rancher and a Neighbor. My father had the ultimate revenge when I was a kid. I grew up on a horse ranch in Colorado. We had a long piece of property, about 80 acres, and we raised Missouri foxtrotters. We had lived there for almost 20 years when some folks bought a strip of property way at the back of our land. It was a strange plot of land as it was very narrow and was sandwiched between the back of our fence and a busy county road. We were surprised anyone would buy it actually, as it forced the house to be pretty close to the said road. Well, we never meet these new neighbors until one day, my dad gets a notice from a lawyer telling us that after having surveyed the property lines, our back fence encroaches on their property between 3 to 6 inches, depending on the spot along the fence line. These folks had never met us, never introduced themselves. Our first introduction was this legal demand. My father was a salt-of-the-earth kind of man, very kind, but also very strong-willed. He called these folks, arranged a meetup, and then tried to talk some sense into them. First topic, did 3 to 6 inches really matter that much? And why had they not come to us to talk it through? He even offered a number of different compromises. These folks were hostile from the get-go. They demanded he move the fence immediately, or they would sue. Apparently, the law stated they had to put their house a certain distance away from our fence line, and they wanted to push it as far back from the road as they could, so they wanted that 6 inches very badly. I still remember when my dad got home from the meeting. He hung his hat up and shook his head when he told my mom in his slow way. He says, "Well, looks like we got the kind of folks for neighbors that you don't ever want to have for neighbors." They sued and won, and we were forced to move the fence within 2 weeks. I say we because I was free slave labor, as all farm kids are in this kind of thing. All that fencing material and time was a big cost for my family, but we got the work done in early spring. Here's where the fun comes in. So, the new neighbors broke ground and built all through the end of winter into spring. The very next weekend, after they moved into their house, Dad roused me out of bed, and we took a big truck into town to the lumber yard. I was extremely puzzled as we were loading up a bunch of fencing material and building supplies. We didn't have any big projects going on that I knew about, and I kept asking him what it was for, but he just told me to wait and see with a devilish smile on his face. We built a pen and a small enclosure very near our back property line, directly behind the neighbor's new shiny house. The next day, one of our farm friends delivered half a dozen pigs to their new home. Dad insisted on feeding those hogs table scraps and all the things that would go into the composter, as well as some good balanced hog feed to keep them healthy. Now you may not know this, but the smell of pig excrement is directly related to what they eat. Table scraps make them smell bad, and I mean bad. I had to drive the four-wheeler back there every day to take care of them, and within a month, halfway there and my eyes would start watering. It smelled so bad. When we mucked out the pen with the bobcats, we also made the pile right next to the pen. I can't even imagine how bad the smell was living in that house. The neighbors, of course, freaked out, and again, without even trying to talk to us, went the legal route. They lost. The area was zoned agricultural, and my dad had done his homework to make sure he wasn't breaking any laws or regulations. The pigs were far enough from us and our other neighbors that it didn't bother anyone but the people that he wanted it to bother. Come fall when winter came, we sold the pigs to slaughter, and my dad stacked up a bunch of building supplies next to the pen and let the neighbors know we would be expanding the operation in the spring. When they came out to scream at him, he smiled the whole time, speaking in his slow, steady way. The new neighbors sold their new house in January when the ground was frozen, so the new owners would not smell the pen. Though as soon as the old neighbors were gone, we tore down the enclosure, spread the nasty stuff on the hayfield, and the new neighbors never had any bad smell come spring. They were also great neighbors and are still lifelong friends. Never mess with a rancher. This one's titled, Apartment had a broken pipe the first day I moved in and ruined all my stuff. They wouldn't break the lease while I was living out of a hotel for weeks, so I bought their domain name and made them buy it back. I had just moved cross-country for a job with my girlfriend and found a nice apartment in the suburbs. The building was nice, staff seemed fine, and everything seemed in order. After unloading all of our boxes and organizing clothes on the floor, we decided to take a break and grab dinner. In the middle of our meal, I got a call from the building saying we had a fire in the apartment. Later, found out the sprinkler pipe burst and triggered the fire alarm. I rushed back to find 4 to 5 inches of water and a massive hole in the ceiling that was leaking water everywhere. All of my stuff was ruined, including all my clothes, my piano, multiple computers, and electronics. Everything was gone. I did have renter's insurance, but found myself living out of a hotel until the repairs were made. Fast forward 2 weeks, I'm still living out of a hotel after the building claimed that they would have my place fixed in a week. I go in to inspect the place, and there's a black mold all over the walls and ceilings. Obviously, not a livable space even after repairs. I'm communicating with the property manager, who keeps brushing me off and saying that everything will be fine and that it won't take much longer. I did mention breaking my lease, and she snaps, claiming I have no grounds to do that, and they'll sue me if I do. So I work in digital marketing, in real estate actually. I have a follow-up meeting with her boss in an hour, and decide to do some research into their URL. Their website name is the full name of the residence, which is pointlessly long. I find the .net available for purchase, as well as multiple iterations of shorter URLs, which presumably have higher search volumes. I spend $50 and buy them all up. Then, I call a lawyer buddy and talk to him about how to use language that will avoid sounding like extortion if I make them buy these back. I walk into the meeting and tell the GM that I want out of the lease immediately. I also say I want my time off work to be compensated for all meals, and given a few $1,000s for the inconvenience of living out of a hotel for weeks. She literally laughs in my face and tells me I have no legal grounds. That's when the most satisfying moment of my life happens. I slide over the who is information for all the URLs. She doesn't understand what she's looking at. I tell her, I purchased these domain names for this property. I'm planning on building a website that explains my story, and including links to your local competitors for free on the homepage of the site. I let her know what I do for a living, and hand over an SEO audit that I pulled for free on the internet of their current site, and explain their poor performance. I let her know that I'll have this website outperforming them within a matter of months with links to competitive properties and my story at the top. Her face drops. She's white as a ghost. She has me wait while she gets her lawyer on the phone. I explain everything to the lawyer, being very, very careful with the language I use. We settle on $5,000 for all the websites, no bad reviews ever, and they break the lease. A week later, when the check comes in, I transfer all the domains to a very confused IT person who wants to know why I have the URLs of their company name. The lesson in all this is buy good renter's insurance and don't let landlords push you around. This one's titled, Tear open our driveway to pour concrete? Fine, you'll probably enjoy having to dig the concrete out of the ground. Twice. Not about me, but a guy I used to work with. He was a mountain of a guy, a huge Turk, but the kindest guy I've ever met. He'd do anything for people he liked. Nobody ever saw anybody get on his bad side until this one fateful day. As it happens, he was also our delivery driver and spent most days on the road in his semi, leaving before dawn and returning quite late, if at all that day. Our warehouse had a driveway large enough for him to pull the semi into, and load and unload. The supermarket next door decided to do some renovations and expand. When they started construction, they started tearing down the brick parking lot and getting really close to tearing out our driveway. The boss runs out, tells them where our property line is, and is assured they won't cross into our property. Everybody goes back inside, nobody worries, until there's suddenly a raging bear Turk standing in the break room, shouting about how the driveway must have been torn up and he can't get his lorry in. We go out, and indeed, the driveway's half missing, and there's a concrete building foundation poured in. Construction workers are nowhere in sight. The boss sends the supermarket manager an email message, and everybody goes home. The next day, we arrive to the site of very angry construction workers. Apparently, our delivery driver went back in the middle of the night with some bolt cutters and liberated about 30 shopping carts and stuck them into the wet concrete in various comical positions. Overnight, the concrete hardened and the carts became difficult to remove. The construction crew brings in the jackhammers, and 4 days later, most of the concrete's gone, and they start preparing for another pour, this time leaving our driveway intact. The foundation comes out fine, everything's looking good. At that time, my boss shows up with the announcement that he had the survey done, and while they didn't tear open the driveway a second time, they were still closer to our property line than allowed, and he'd already filed a complaint to get the concrete removed. It took them another week of jackhammering to get it out. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed this episode of r/ProRevenge. If you did, leave a comment and thumbs up. If you aren't subscribed, hit the subscribe button and do the bell thing that everybody asks you to do on their channels, but almost nobody ever does. And I'll see you in the next one. It took them another week of jackhammering. Fuck! That sucks.